The Uncharted series has really come a long way since its initial start back in 2007 with the release of Drake's Fortune, and in 2009 Naughty Dog really wowed us when it released Uncharted 2 Among Thieves, which is widely known as one of the best games of this console generation, and actually I consider it to be one of my favorite games of all time. They really set the bar with that game, and the leap from Uncharted 1 to Uncharted 2 was beyond what anybody thought would have been capable. It really pushed the cinematic experience, and really, it has since set the bar for action-adventure games, and fans of the series have really been on the edge of how much better can Uncharted 3 be when Uncharted 2 did so many things right.
Perfect. Here we go.
Going into Uncharted 3, I told myself I wanted to remain as spoiler-free as possible, so granted I saw, the initial trailers and I watched some gameplay here and there, but for the most part I really didn't know where this game was going to be taking me. And I really thought it was going to take place mostly in the desert, but to my surprise, that's actually a pretty small portion of the game. So when it's taking me into the jungle and some of my favorite parts in the entire series, such as a sinking ship in, the sea during a storm, or as I'm flying over the desert in a plane, or if I'm running across rooftops, it really surprised me in terms of all the different locations that it brought me to. And at times it was getting overwhelming because the pace of Uncharted 3, just like Uncharted 2, is so breakneck. You're constantly moving forward, constantly finding different locations, meeting new people. So it paces itself really well. Has a great story to back it up that actually goes in a direction that I would have never seen coming, believe it or not. Character development also gets a special treatment in Uncharted 3 because it tries to give us a look back at Nathan Drake and Sully and how they met 20 years ago in a really cool flashback sequence 20 years in the past.
You are one piece of work, kid. What's your story, anyway?
Look, mister. No offense, but I don't even know you.
Easily remedied. Victor Sullivan. This should be the part where you introduce yourself. Okay.
The new characters that they introduced into the series, especially Marlowe, who is the new female antagonist, the new villain, she has a really interesting and quirky personality to her. I mean, by the end of the game you want to hate her, but there's just something about her character that in the end you kind of fall in love with how she works and how she ticks and how she plays along with Nathan Drake throughout the whole story.
For a man of your age.
Should have known you'd be behind this. Oh, careful now. Wouldn't want you to melt.
Same cocky little shit. So fearless. I wonder what you're really afraid of.
Because what's great about the Uncharted series, and especially it's very apparent in Uncharted 3, is all the characters are played by real actors. So they motion capture them. They don't motion capture their faces, but they get their real performance in real time, capture their lines, and they do improv and everything. So I thought that was really cool. It really helps bring a lot of great personality to the characters that you don't really find in many other series that don't take this method of capturing their characters and their actors into the game.
You're nothing but a filthy, cast-off little beggar. You're not fit to touch these objects.
When it comes to the gameplay and coming from Uncharted 2 to Uncharted 3, it has for the most part stayed the same. The biggest improvement though would definitely be the melee combat, but I'm not going to speak quite as highly of it as most people are because for the most part it boils down to just mashing on the square button until it prompts you to counter or dodge an enemy attack with the triangle. But the thing to the melee combat that gives it that extra something that just makes it that much more enjoyable is the fact that it interacts with what your surroundings are. So if you're in the market and there's like jars and say fish on a table, if Nathan is by those items in the world, he'll interact with them. So instead of just punching his enemies, he'll grab something and smash it over their head. Or if you're next to say a wall or a table or something, he'll take the enemy and smash them into the table or the wall. Which brings me to the next point I wanted to make, and that's the attention to detail that Naughty Dog brings to the Uncharted series. I was just blown away by, just from exploring off the beaten path. Because there are times in Uncharted 3 where it'll let you, it is a linear game, but there are times where the gameplay slows down a little bit and you can do some exploring of your own. And the game does have hidden treasures which you can find, so it kind of encourages exploring if you're into collecting different things for whether it be achievements or just for the fun of it. But the point I want to bring here is, from going down an alleyway in, say, a city, in one of the game's locations, you can find, market vendors, signs that you can read in detail of the products that they carry, different vendors with fruits and vegetable stands, or a weapons vendor, and the attention to the minute little details within those shops is just incredible. Or you might even have, say, a broken, leaking pipe that's up on a second story of a building that's running down the building. Is there a point to it? No, but it really adds that extra sense of believability and that extra little detail that really, things like this help set the Uncharted series apart from other game series. And the last thing that I wanted to touch on in terms of the detail of the world that Naughty Dog has crafted, I'm not going to spoil it, I'm not going to show any footage, but the last area that you reach in the game is probably the most detailed, the most fully realized and believable area I've ever seen in any game. And granted, this final area is, it's a work of fiction. A place like this doesn't exist in the world, but they made it so believable. If a place like this did exist, what would it look like? And I just thought they did an incredible job, and it is so worth playing to the end of this game just to see this final area. It's unbelievable. Alright, now, despite all the praise I've had for Uncharted 3 so far, it's not without its problems. First of all, I don't recall Uncharted 2 being this bad, but I played on normal difficulty for my first playthrough for Uncharted 3, and the enemy AI at times was laughably bad. I'm talking some of the dumbest AI I've seen in any shooting game, any action-adventure game, and that's saying quite a bit. At times, the enemies are just dumbfounded. They would stand there and not shoot at me. They would try and take cover and fail. They kind of were unflinching to many of my attacks, and yes, I realize there are different enemy types, such as, the more of the tank characters that kind of just continuously walk towards you with a shotgun. It might have been, fun and challenging the first couple of times, but by the 20th time you're fighting these characters, it kind of grows a little bit stale and predictable. Keep in mind this was on normal difficulties, so on higher difficulties this might not be a problem, but I found that the AI in the game didn't react the way you would think it would until the end of the game. I'm not sure if the end enemies were programmed in a different way, but they seem to react to their surroundings and take cover when they should, whereas the normal enemies for most of the game reacted in ways that you wouldn't really be expecting from a game such as Uncharted 3 that's so finely tuned to be as perfect as possible, so areas like this really stand out. And another big complaint that I have is texture pop-up. There are multiple, actually many times in the game, when you change a scene or you enter a new area, it takes several seconds for the textures to load in, and yes, this does happen with many other games, but it's such a pet peeve of mine, and it really annoys me because once again, it takes you out of that setting that they've crafted, and it really distracts from your surroundings. And I did run into a couple of really strange glitches, such as a blood red sea and characters that were missing half of their body. It's really unfortunate, they were so close to crafting this perfectly detailed world, and, technical issues such as this really started to drag it down a little bit. But in the end, I'm just nitpicking, because Uncharted 3 is a phenomenal game. Do not get me wrong, this is a game that is not to be missed. If you've never played the other two Uncharted games, try and play them first, because the characters it's especially true at Uncharted 3, they really do carry over from the second one. So I would highly encourage playing Uncharted 2 first, at least Uncharted 2 first, and then move on to 3. But in the end, to be completely honest, I actually still prefer Uncharted 2 over Uncharted 3. The reason being is the jump from Uncharted 1 to Uncharted 2 was so big. Uncharted 2 just blew me away so much. So going from 2 to 3, they share so many similarities that it wasn't quite as impactful as Uncharted 2 was. And it doesn't have to do so much with which game had the bigger action sequences, which, by the way, Uncharted 3 has some of the craziest action scenes in any game I've ever played. They're amazing and so over the top. But Uncharted 2 just had such an impact on me, that big leap from 1 to 2. Once again, the excellent pacing, the different environments, the story to it, the gameplay. Uncharted 3 is more of the same, and I think that's its biggest problem, you know, which isn't a bad thing. Some people take that different ways than others, but to me, I still prefer Uncharted 2 over Uncharted 3. And just the last thing I wanted to mention, the game can be beaten in about 7 to 8 hours, maybe even a little bit less. And it does feature an online mode, so you do have online co-op mode as well as online multiplayer. Now, I did extensively play the multiplayer portion in the Subway promotion that they had before the game's release, so I actually had full access to the multiplayer mode before it came out. And, you know, it's pretty good. It's got a lot of different gameplay modes to it, as well as a lot of different, you know, attachments for your guns and unlockables and perks, so you can customize your character the way that you want to. It's definitely not for everybody, though. It's got a different feel to it. Definitely the most unique thing about it is just the verticality of the levels, where it's not so much on a plain, you know, flat ground. You can scale the buildings, you can jump around, and some of the levels are really over the top, such as being in a sandstorm or being on a moving plane that's getting ready to take off and there's trucks chasing around and you're hopping from the truck to the plane, as well as 2 moving parallel trains down, you know, a tunnel. It's crazy. It's got some awesome levels, and it's definitely worth checking out. Just keep in mind that this game does require an online pass, so if you're renting or, you know, buying this game, just keep that in mind. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed my review of Uncharted 3, and if you're new to the series, definitely try and play at least Uncharted 2 first. And if you're a fan of the series and you're kind of on the fence about Uncharted 3, take the plunge. I'm telling you, this is an experience not to miss. It improves upon Uncharted 2 in many ways, but in my opinion, Uncharted 2 still holds that dear place in my heart. I still prefer it, but Uncharted 3 is still an amazing experience. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching.